Hi, I'm C.C. Péan, and this is Reclaiming Your Health. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Reclaiming Your Health. How are you all doing? This has been a tough day for me, but I'm here and I'm happy that you have joined me. This evening, we are going to be making a lentil loaf. And we're going to be doing a little bit of experimentation here because the lentils that I needed, I wasn't able to find, so I got a different lentil. So we will figure out at the same time whether or not this works. Something I wanted to let you know is that whenever you use canned lentils, you do not use flaxseed egg. If you're using fresh lentils, you need to use a flaxseed egg. The other thing is, when you're using canned lentils, do not discard any of the liquid. You need to keep it because what will happen if you discard the liquid, you're going to have a very, very dry loaf. Trust me, that happened to me. So anyway, we're going to get going because we are doing something. We've got a few different steps to do. I'm going to turn this on. There we go. Turn this on and get started. So very simple recipe, very tasty recipe. Lentil loaf is one of those things that's been around for a very long time in the plant-based and vegetarian world. It's an easy recipe. This evening's recipe, what I love about it is something that can be adapted to a gluten-free lifestyle. If you are gluten-free, simply use gluten-free oats. So this evening we have organic black lentils, and this is in a non-BPA lining. So the bisphenol A is not in this, and we talked about that, I believe, that bisphenol A is cancer-causing properties. It's basically a plastic, and what happens over time in canned goods is it leaches into your food. So we always want to make sure that if we do use something canned, that it says non-BPA lining. And it says that right here. So this is the star of our recipe. We're also going to be using some oats and some oat flour. And you make oat flour, simply drop this in your Vitamix or any high-speed blender and turn it up, and this is what will happen. So you don't have to buy it. If you have oats, you can make it with what you have. Okay, and then we're also going to be making a delicious, this meatloaf really does taste good with more of a tangy, zippy type of sauce. But I had these beautiful mushrooms that I wanted to use, so I'm doing a mushroom gravy. And some people prefer a little bit more of a luscious type of gravy, so that's what that's going to be. So, something just... Okay. So what we're going to get started doing first, this is my... Oh my goodness, what is going on here? Sorry, people. So this is celery, onions, carrots, and garlic that I've minced. It's going to go in here. We're just going to cook this up just a little bit. You know, there are times when I make loaves and things like that, and I just put it directly into the mix. I don't cook it, but this is one that you really want to cook. So there is like maybe a tablespoon of oil in here. Okay, so while that cooks, you're going to see here are my lentils, and you can see the liquid in them. You can see the liquid in them. And so what I've done with my potato masher is I just want to go in there and just break up some of them. You want some texture in there, so you don't want to like make it mush, but you want to break them up just a little bit. So we've done that. This is cooking beautifully. And we're going to put some traditional spices in here that you would typically use in like a loaf or a meatloaf. We've got some thyme powder, coriander, cumin. We've got some cayenne. That's all going to go in there. And again, this is one of those things, I know you all have heard me say this, create your own recipe. Whatever your favorite seasonings are, just try them out. If you don't like it, you don't like it. If you want a little more, if you want a little less, just do that. All right, so this is pretty much done. So I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to put my lentils in this pan. I'm going to dump my seasoning in there. There's my coriander. There's my thyme. You all have the measurements. There's my cumin, just a little bit of cayenne. Don't want to do too much. And we're going to do maybe 2 pinches of salt. I'm going to mix this all up. Now we're going to put in a half a cup of our oat flour, 3/4 cup of our oats. And we're just going to mix this. Now you want to mix it to incorporate it, but you don't want to overwork it. You just kind of want to make sure that it's, a little damp, because this is going to go into either a meatloaf pan, whatever kind of pan you want. You can use a meatloaf pan. I'm going to show you all something different that I do. My sister-in-law gave me this cute little pan. And I love it, and I use it because it's great. Like if you're trying to do meal prep or something like that, it's like the perfect size, 1 serving. Oops. Okay, so you see how easily that came together? That's what we're looking for. Now, at this point, you can taste it and see if you need a little more salt, but I'm pretty sure it's good. All right, so now we're done with this, and I'm going to show you what I do. So I have this cute little pan here. Of course, you can always use just your regular loaf pan, but I like these because I can just like have my cute little loaf with me and like a little salad or my green beans or whatever, and it's a serving. And that's one of the things that we need to be mindful of, because we live in a culture where like you'll go to Cheesecake Factory or something and you get a plate that actually feeds like 4 or 5 people. And I've done this. I've sat down and I've tried to eat everything on the plate. That's not a serving. So even though we're eating healthier, we still need to be mindful of our servings. Just because it's healthy doesn't mean you can eat without abandon. Talking to myself. Okay, so I'm just gonna spray this pan, a little avocado oil. I'm gonna use my little scoop so I get the same exact portions. And I'm just gonna drop that in there and press it down. This is so good for meal prep. And also, like if you want to bake them and then freeze them, this is a good way to do it too. Just pressing it down in there. You see how quickly this comes together with it? We're not even like 10 minutes in, and our loaf is almost ready to go into the oven. Continue to put it in there and press it down. Oops. A little bit. If If you don't like getting your hands messy, you could always use a spatula or something like that. And there you go. I've got a little bit left, so I'm just going to go back through and add a little more to these. And then we're going to drop these in the oven and we're going to get to making our gravy. This smells so yum. So I use black lentils. You can use green lentils for this. I wouldn't suggest red lentils. Those cook up a bit too soft. Green lentils and black lentils still kind of maintain their texture. So those are the ones to use. Okay, so at this point, your oven is at 350 and you would bake this for 40 to 50 minutes. I'm gonna go put it in the oven and I will be right back and we'll get started on our gravy. So I'm back. So you saw how easy that was. And one of the things I want you all to know is that eating healthy is not complicated. I purposely choose simple recipes that are delicious, but they're easy so that you know that eating well does not have to be a chore. So now we're gonna make this mushroom gravy. What's great about this mushroom gravy, you can actually use this for, if you want to do like a mushroom stroganoff, it's very, very similar. I've done that for my husband. He loves this. And so it's one of my go-tos. So you're gonna get about 3 cups of mushrooms. I have these king black oyster mushrooms, but you can use shiitake, you can use just whatever. You can use one type, you can use several. I had these and I didn't want to waste them, so we're using these, and I'm just coarsely chopping them. Don't have to do anything, because you know your mushrooms are going to shrivel up and cook down. So let's do this. There we go. Mushrooms are known as the vegetarian's meat. I always encourage people to try mushrooms. Some people don't like their texture, but I will tell you that there are so many different textures of mushrooms that if you don't like one, there's another that you will like. Wood ear mushrooms are incredibly delicious. They're really big in like Korean culture and Asian culture that has a really distinct flavor to them and texture. So try it, you never know. I'm gonna do this a little finer because we are doing a gravy. But again, it is whatever you wanna do, however you like it. There are no rules. There are no rules. Okay. Alrighty. So now we're gonna turn this on. Come on. We're going to use a little bit of plant-based butter in this pan. That's about a tablespoon. You can also make this oil-less if you wanted to. You can just saute in a little bit of water and steam it. So I'm going to add to this some onions. This is about 2 tablespoons of onions are going to go in there. I've got a sprig of thyme that I've broken in half that's going to go in there. I've got 2 cloves of garlic that are going to go in here. I love this little induction stove. It cooks so quickly. Okay. Now I'm going to take these mushrooms. Drop those in there. I'm just going to allow them to cook. Now, mushrooms do suck up oil. They suck up pretty much whatever you put in. That's the great thing about mushrooms because what that says is that it absorbs flavor. Oh, I wanted to give you all a tip about mushrooms. I don't know if you know this, but the best way to store your mushrooms are in a paper bag. Did you know that if you store your mushrooms in a paper bag, they will last for up to 2 months, as opposed to the plastic that you get at the grocery store? When they're in paper, they have the ability, they're able to breathe. When they are in plastic, it suffocates the mushrooms and it causes them to give off um, moisture and they spoil. So whenever I come home with my mushrooms, the first thing I do is I take them out of that plastic and I put them in a paper bag, and they literally last. I mean, I've had some mushrooms for over a month, and they didn't smell, they weren't slimy, nothing. Okay, so you see how quickly that has cooked down? Now, depending if you like your mushrooms with texture, I talk about that a lot, you can stop here, or if you want to cook them down a little more, you can. I like mine with a little texture. I'm going to do a little sprinkle of salt here, just a little bit. Now I'm going to use a cup of oat milk. It's full fat oat milk. It's like my favorite, it's like my new go to. Oat milk is so delicious. It really, to me, is the closest thing that I've tasted to whole milk. So that's going right in the pan. Here I have 2 tablespoons of cornstarch, and I'm just going to put just enough water in there to liquefy it, because that's going to help thicken our gravy. So you see that? Make sure you get down in there, because sometimes it'll clump up. Okay. Excellent. You can see it is bubbling. It's already bubbling. You could use a little more, you could use a little less, depending how much gravy you like. Now, here's one of my favorite things to do when I cook mushrooms. I always use nutmeg. And let me give you a hint. If you really want to take your things to the next level, I literally get whole nutmeg. I don't buy ground nutmeg. And I go right over the top and I grate it. I think things that are creamy taste so good with nutmeg. Oops. Oh, don't do that. Don't do that. I need to get some more. See, my pieces were so small, that's why it dropped in there. Okay. So now I'm going to add a little bit of my cornstarch. And it's thickening up already. If you find that you've used too much, just add a little more liquid to it. That is looking great. That is looking splendid. I'm making a mess in here today. Okay, so you can see this is really thickened up. So it's not a runny gravy. This is the kind of gravy that's going to cling to that loaf when it's done. Or like I said, you can use some egg noodles and make a great mushroom stroganoff. I'm going to turn this off. Just do some cleaning up, getting some things out the way. And when all is said and done, this is what you have. So this amount, I would say if you are cooking for a family of 4, I would double this recipe. Interestingly enough, when I've made this recipe, I have had to kind of stuff my loaf pan because it didn't fill the whole pan. So double your recipe when you make this. If you want to have a nice full loaf, double it. This is what it's going to look like when it's done. And so I have this mushroom gravy, or if you're somebody who likes things that are just a little bit more zippy, let me just taste this and make sure this is good. That's good. That's good. You can taste the thyme in it. So it kind of has this earthy floral to it. It's nice and creamy. The nutmeg just adds a whole nother flavor profile to it. Yummy. But I was saying, if you prefer tomato, I have made a gravy that you can use. I use tomato sauce. I don't use ketchup. A lot of times they suggest that you use ketchup. I don't like to use ketchup because it's full of corn syrup and it's full of salt. So I use just regular tomato sauce. I'll add a touch of apple cider vinegar, maybe some agave to give it some sweetness, some cumin, and then you've got a lovely sauce that you can actually put on the loaf before you bake it. Keep a little extra and you can spoon it on as well. But tonight, we are doing our mushroom gravy. Let me get this thyme out of the way. It's one of my husband's greatest pet peeves that I leave my thyme stems in there. But I feel like, did you really use thyme if you can't find it, if you don't see it in there? No, you didn't. So this is going to go right down the center. Ooh, that looks good. And people, this literally about 35 minutes. Now, mind you, it has to bake for about 40 minutes, but the preparation took about 30 minutes. That looks so yummy. And I've got some parsley this time. And I'm just going to drop the parsley on top because we want it to taste good and we want it to look good as well. Look at that. Lentil loaf with mushroom gravy. 25 minutes. Good stuff. Heart healthy. It's filling. Remember, you can make this gluten-free if you like. Simply use gluten-free oats. Play around. This has celery, this has garlic, it has onions, it has carrots in it. You can, thank you, Melissa. You can add bell peppers to this if you want to. You can just really go for it. You can use all kinds of seasonings. The Ras El Hanout that I introduced you all the other day too, that's the North African spice. This would be a great application for it. Again, this sauce can be used over egg noodles. When I was growing up, there's something we used to eat a lot called chicken a la king. You could also use this same base and put pieces of vegetarian chicken in there and make your chicken a la king. It's just a really adaptable recipe, and it's super easy to make. You can make a meatloaf sandwich with this. You don't have to eat it like this. You can go in a sandwich, put some veggies on your toasted bun. You've got this, you've got lettuce, you've got a piece of cheese, and it's totally satisfying. These refrigerate and freeze wonderfully. You really can't go wrong with it, and it's super inexpensive. This can of lentils was like 250. Um, I used maybe probably the most expensive part of this dish was the mushrooms. But I would say that you can feed a family of four for under $10, and it's heart healthy. So this is what you want to do. So thank you all for joining me. Have a wonderful week, and I'll see you on the 10th.